So, from the earlier discussion, you know that culture is a very important determinant conducting businesses across national boundaries, right? And especially taking example that when one company wants to go abroad, and it must understand the local culture and develop its product or services. Maybe they need to offer the new product or services to the individual markets. And sometimes it might need to change the ingredients or menus, right? And also, in the same time, a company needs to be flexible when conducting advertising and promotion materials across different cultural contexts in order to communicate and interact with the potential and current customers abroad. Okay. And this is a local examples of KFC. Okay. So I don't know if you tried this in the menu before. That this is called sweet potato frying balls. Oh, try it. Do you like it? No? No.
Not this one.
This is one of the street food. You can often find in the night markets. Exactly, yeah. So you can see that KFC not only focuses on the new product itself, it offers customer-centric advertisements and promotion campaign in order to interact with the current potential customers currently in Taiwan. Okay. Another fast food chain called Moose Burger. Okay. And Moose Burger, I want to talk about the case in China in particularly. Okay. Do you recognize this brand, Moose Burger? Yes, right? Do you like it? Well, yeah, we understand this gesture. Okay. So this is a Japanese multinational, right? And Moose Burger first entered Chinese market back in 1994, and in line with the Chinese foreign investment law then, foreign direct investments through wholly owned subsidiaries was not allowed. So instead, through foreign direct investments, Moose Burger had no choice but partner with the local Chinese firm to share the ownership of their investments. Okay, and I don't know if you know about the history between China and Japan. Okay, but I believe you know that there has been quite intense relationship between these two Asian countries. Okay, and as a result of that, the cooperation between Moose Burger and a Shanghai-based company was not smooth. And at the fourth, Moose Burger left China after 3 years operation. Very unpleasant experience then. And 13 years later, in 2010, Moose Burger re-entered China with a new strategy. Okay. Based on the prior experience, now he forms the partnership with a Taiwanese firm called Teiko Group. Okay. Because Chinese tend to be friendly with Taiwanese, as a comparison with Japanese, of course. And Moose Burger in China has been transformed into, or you can say undercover, as a Taiwanese food chain. Okay. And he hired Taiwanese store manager and brought much Taiwanese culture into the stores, mainly concerned with the customer service in terms of politeness. And there was an interesting street survey in China in early days about their perception towards this brand. And they found that nearly 80% of Chinese customers thought Moose Burger was a Taiwanese food chain. Okay? So you can see that its cultural strategy was effective in some ways. And this is really interesting because it kind of changed our conventional view on international marketing, isn't it? Because we know that many companies do go abroad because they want to make their brands to be known by the foreign customers. But in the case of Moose Burger, it did not want to uncover its real brand image, in particular in the Chinese markets. Okay. And the partnership between Moose Burger and the Teiko Group from Taiwan was not the first attempt. Their cooperation can be traced back to 1990. When Moose Burger entered Taiwan. Okay? And so we can perceive their cooperation in China is kind of the extended relationship from Taiwan. Okay? And in fact, there are many foreign brands follow the suit of Moose Burger. For instance, Starbucks is one of them. Okay? It has the partnership with the Taiwanese firm, which is the largest retailer in Taiwan, called Uni President, which is the mother company of 7-Eleven. Okay? And these foreign brands first came to Taiwan and formed a partnership with the Taiwanese firm by franchising or joint venture agreements, and they extended such partnership when they invest in China in a later phase. Okay? And this is because they can leverage the knowledge of Taiwanese partners, in which they are obviously much more familiar with the Chinese markets and understand the Chinese customers' behavior and the customer preferences. And from the two cases I just mentioned, those KFC and Moose Burger, they are two foreign companies want to expand their operation abroad, but their cultural strategies can be quite different, right? KFC adopts very traditional way to attract the Taiwanese customers' attention by offering very localized food in its adapted menu. But Mills Burger is using very different cultural strategy to building out a partnership with the company from a third nationality, that is from Taiwan, in order to build a more favorable brand image to the Chinese customers. Okay. And speaking of the cultural strategies in international market, so here I'm going to show you a video. Okay, so concerning a series of commercial HSBC has been used. I think that's 2 decades ago, so the resolution of the video was not really good. Okay. So we know HSBC is a UK-based international bank, okay, and you will see that how HSBC utilized its cultural strategy to know its brand and interact with the potential current customers. So those 3 commercials provided by HSBC in early days. So you can see the resolution of the video was really bad, right? I have to say their commercial was really entertaining at the time. Okay, and you can see that cultural strategy worked very well even to date. It shows the brand image of HSBC as an international brand with the local approaches, adapting its customer services to fit in various host country customer needs. Okay, and what we've discussed so far is concerning the role of culture in international business strategies on developing products and services, preparing advertising promotion materials, and interacting with current potential customers from abroad. But when it comes to the interaction with the foreign partners, culture again played a critical role. Okay, so let me ask you a question. How would you normally do in the first meeting with a business partner? in your culture? Yes. You just do a handshake, right? Probably have some small chat about anything you have the common grounds, right? And in Taiwan, we do the handshake as well, and we will say hello or maybe ni hao. Okay, and the follow-up questions are quite interesting. It's really adapted to local culture here. Is that we will ask your partner, are you thirsty or hungry? Have you eaten anything? They're always about the food in Taiwanese culture. Okay, and even though our partners may be already full, we still will serve them with the drinks and maybe the food on the table. Okay, that's our generosity. And in some countries, such as Latin America and also, for example, many of the countries in Latin America, people usually hug their business partner in their first meeting to say hello, and they usually do the hug in a very intense way because they are very physical and outgoing culture in their expressions and their greetings. Okay? And in some cultures, such as I think most of Western cultures like this, that people just do a handshake and express their sincerity when they first meet their business partner. Okay? After the handshake, what would you do? Probably you're in the second stage of exchange your business cards, right? And speaking of exchange of business card, I think it's quite normal in most of the Western culture. You just change your business card and you place on the table, right? Or maybe you place it somewhere, or maybe just put it in your pocket. I think that's not rude at all. But in Japan, if you do so, it's actually very rude. Okay? In Japanese culture, business card is called meshi in Japanese. And it's kind of a ritual for them that if you exchange the business card with them, you need to say something about the business card. For instance, you pray, because on your business card, it got a lot of information. For instance, what kind of university you graduated, what kind of position they hold on the company, and maybe their private experience, so on and so forth. And you need to say something on that. For instance, try to find a common ground. For instance, you probably have another friend graduating the same university with the person you meet, and say something good about his university, so on and so forth. And once you move on to the next topic, you still hold the business card on your hand. Okay, you can't just place it on the table, put it in the pocket. So this is how culture plays a role, even though it's kind of trivial things in the business meeting. Another critical dimensions of cross-cultural business relationship, I think, is negotiation. We mentioned about it earlier in earlier slides. Because you know, international business negotiating process typically involve intense cross-cultural communications, especially if you are negotiating a new venture with the foreign partners. Okay. So what is international venture? Okay. Essentially means any form of internationalization strategies undertaken by firms when going abroad. Okay? So have you ever wondered how do firms internationalize? Okay? So these are the range of financial choices available for firms to go abroad. So if you can recall some of the keywords in the video you watched earlier, so you will find this terminology shown on the slides are quite familiar to you. Some of these entry strategies are very easy ideas, simple ideas, such as exporting and importing. For smaller scale firms, such as small and medium-sized enterprise, they would rather apply exporting and importing in the beginning of their internationalization process because they usually require minimal efforts and relatively little capital investments by firms. Compared with the foreign direct investments, you know that which you need to require substantial investments, especially in the beginning. You need to have productive assets in foreign countries. And now you picture yourself as a manager, okay, who is in charge of internationalization decision for your company. Given these uncharted entry strategies, how would you make the decision? Okay. In fact, to make the proper decision on that, you need to reflect the overall objective of internationalization. Some firms go international because they are searching for bigger markets, and others do so because they want to be close to their customers, or maybe their sourcing destinations, or maybe they want to confront their competitors in the foreign markets. Okay. Regardless the different mode of internationalization process, managers very often will be stuck in between in these entry strategies because they have trouble distinguishing certain strategy from others, and they don't understand what would be the relationship between them. Okay. So to resolve the issue, this is my version of classification of this entry strategy. Okay. Why do I say my version? Because at the current stage, no single textbook, especially international business, can tell you the relationship among them. So I think it would be better if we can provide a holistic framework explaining what are the differences here. Okay. So based on my research, especially in the past decades, in particular in IB, I classify foreign mode choices into these two broad types. Okay. Depending upon whether or not you do it alone, you do it by someone else's help. Okay. So you can distinguish between FDI and international institutional alliances. If you do FDI, obviously you do internationalize purely by yourself. Okay. And there are two categories of FDI. And the first one is greenfield or offshore investments. You set up your own subsidiaries to grow, starting from scratch, that means greenfield. Or maybe you just offshore certain part of production line to another country and need offshoring. I think we discussed it earlier. But another categories of FDI is called mergers and acquisition, right? So you often heard about these words in the international business news. Merge and acquisition are actually two different strategies. Okay. Merge means that company A and company B merge together and still remain their name, usually in the pharmaceutical industry, because brand name is the key assets of their companies. And but there are two companies at the beginning, and by the end, just one company left. And you do the acquisition, usually a larger organization acquire a smaller organization. They do so because they want to acquire certain critical resources they need. Okay? Usually it can be happen in high-tech industries. And on the other face of internationalization strategies called ISA, International Strategic Alliances. It means the cross-border cooperating arrangement involved at least one foreign and one domestic firm. And they can be further classified into equity-based and non-equity-based. If you do equity-based alliances, it means that you put in capital investments. Usually will be 50-50 joint ventures. So there will be company A and company B set up a new company C in the foreign countries. They call joint venture equity-based alliance. And the rest of the alliances or international cooperation involving any forms of relationship, for instance, it could be buyer-supply relationship. You just sign agreements through exporting and importing. There could be non-equity-based alliances, or maybe the example I just provided about my family business. We sign out the R&D contract, okay, and international franchising, licensing, outsourcing, co-production, anything you can think of across national border can be classified as non-equity-based alliance. Okay. And in my past experience, I've just said that some students may be confused about distinction between M&A and ISA because they seem to be very similar strategy formed by more than one partners, right? Here are the explanation with the concrete diagram. So if you do merge, like I just said earlier, the company A and B merge together, usually stand your brand name. So two companies in the beginning, one company by the end. If you do the acquisition, there will be larger company A acquire a smaller company B. So two companies in the beginning, one company left. And if you do equity joint venture, means company A and B form a new company C. Okay. So two companies in the beginning, there will be three companies by the end. And if you're not equity based, you don't do anything, you just strengthen your relationships. That's why I highlighted the two anchors here with the much stronger effect to mention the relation between company A and B. Okay. And here is another mapping concept to explain the overall difference between FDI and ISA. So from here, you will know that if you do FDI, you set up your subsidiary in different countries with A1, A2, A3. They are all under your ownership, so it's called FDI. But if you do ISA, it means that your company A, you form a different relationship with the company B, C, and D abroad. Okay, so different concept. So you're not managing FDI is much more costly compared with the international strategic alliances because you need to spend more money, putting a lot of investments on that to set up your subsidiaries to grow. Sometimes you need to spend a lot of money to acquire a certain company located abroad. Okay? And through FDI management, established direct contact with the customers, intermediaries, facilitators, and government sector in the host countries, which implies that the foreign presence operation. Therefore, FDI deal with more intensively with the different culture, institutional, and economic influences across the international market, which further will influence your company's cooperation, operations and performance in worldwide scale. Okay, so the key concept here is location becomes the most critical determinant of FDI performance. So if you do FDI, location is the priority for you to think of because which country you go to will imply a different set of contextual differences. Okay, so location is the key. If you go back to the core of the lecture today, how do you think about the role of culture in international business venture? It means that if you do internationalization through any of these strategies, what do you think about impact of cultural difference? Is it positive or is it negative? What do you think? Yes.
I think positive because if you are like learn and take the best from different cultures.
Yes, only if your learning is one of your purpose for internationalization, right? What else? Does anyone think about it's a negative effect? Yes.
It's very hard to manage a company with different cultures.
Yes, especially in practices, if you follow international strategic alliance, usually there will be more than 2 partners, probably 3 or 4 partners together, and they are all from different cultural backgrounds, right? So it's rather difficult to manage that, of course. So, so I would say I agree with both that it's actually both negative and positive. Okay, and it's actually been a debate, and there are mixed findings in the prior literature. Just give you an example of my earlier publication in 2018. So the paper discussed the role of formal and informal institution differences in cross-border knowledge transfer learning through international strategic alliances. And informal institution essentially means cultural differences in my paper. Okay. So basically my paper argues that cultural differences may be one of the potential source of cross-border knowledge transfer because partners may be eager to learn from each other. And in order to benefit from the diversity of the practices, believe and value in the alliance. So simply put, cultural differences could be one of the reasons why they form the partnership. Okay? But cultural differences may result in valuable knowledge transfer learning outcome between the partners because on the one hand, it raises the perceived optimistic behavior of the partners, and on the other hand, it results in difficulties, puzzles, and causal ambiguity associated with the knowledge transfer learning because if you understand each other's, you rather will cause communication rollbacks. For instance, if you transfer one knowledge to your partners, and not necessarily your partner will receive the knowledge you actually give them. Okay? There will be a miscommunication in between. Okay? So they will reflect in limited access to knowledge by the end. So of course, the cooperation will be failed. And so what can you learn from here is that the very impact of cultural distance in international business venture essentially indicate the need for further research. Okay. If you are interested, you can read a dominant paper written by distinguished Professor Odi Schenker, working at Ohio University in the States. Okay, so it published a paper about the role of culture in international business studies. I think the most recent paper published is in the top journal of IB in 2020. I upload your paper for information into your core if you're interested. And actually, Professor Odi Schenker and I are working on a paper discussing the role of culture and institutions in structuring digital alliances in international markets right now. And our second paper plans to work on the role of culture in shaping multinational enterprises' sustainability practices because we believe that as a result of cultural differences, multinationals will apply different types of sustainability practices across different international markets. Okay. So I think that's a very important paper if you want to look at the cultural differences. Then continuing on a debate on culture. So here are 2 of them. Okay. These 2 questions are in fact very hot debating topic in cross-cultural studies and also in the international business research. And as you know, there's no right or wrong answer, right? So you can have some time to look at these 2 questions and see what will be your answer. The first question is that to what extent you believe the culture around the world are becoming more similar or becoming more different? Okay. And secondly is that do you believe country or nation as a proper level across cultural analysis and why? Okay, so I'll give you some time to think about it. If you got the answer, you can just raise your hand and speak up. Okay. So what do you think about the first question? I think that's an easy one. Do you believe the world culture becoming more similar? You can't raise your hand. Okay. Why? Why is that? Why do you think that the world culture becoming more similar? Yes, yes, if you may.
I think they're not really becoming more similar. It's more like we start to share values,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't generalize it into like a whole culture that is, for example, start to acknowledge the importance of equality, like for example, gender equality, and starts implemented in our societies, and that can create the impression that we are having the same cultures, which is not.
Yes, and also with the help of, I think, the advancement of IT, information and communication technologies and mass media, right? So we see pretty much the same knowledge across the world. So we're so influenced by the work culture right now. What else? What could be the other reason? Yes, sorry about that.
Like now the message transfer very slow. It's
Mhm.
like similar to this. So like it's hard to differentiate what something else. Like influence. Like everyone in the world know it. So
Yeah, if you have access to the internet, you will know it, right? What else?
Yeah, I also thought about like the media and like for example creativity and possibly music and film.
Mhm.
It's become so much easier to like the same things. So then like the same
Yeah. So do you believe that when you receive the similar information nowadays, you will think the behaving will be the individual thinking and behaving will still be the same, or you will be much more self-expression by yourself? I don't know, because from my observation, I believe I think different generation they have a different reaction towards the work culture. Okay, so in my generation, people will tend to be think like the same, because if you are different, it seems quite different. It's really odd in Taiwanese culture. Okay, but I've been observed that the younger generations like you, especially the local students here, it's kind of a trend for them to express themselves, even though you will receive the similar messages, similar course content, so on and so forth. They're much more eager to express themselves as a different person. Okay, so I think for this question, like I just said earlier, there's no right or wrong answer, but this is a very hot debate topic in international business studies. So in terms of debating over the convergence or divergence of culture around the world, I think people support a view that culture is becoming more similar, just as you just said, mainly due to the phenomenon of globalization and the development of information technology in the past few decades. Okay? But others argue that cultural diversity will persist or even expand because people have different cultural orientation. Okay? They will have different responses to globalization and information technology. And from my own perspective, I believe that the work culture will be becoming more similar in the long run. And because the expression of education, for instance, we have many exchange students here receiving education in Taiwan, not to mention we have many local students going abroad for studying. So also we have regional economic integration, right? And also development of mass communication, such as the internet will lead the world population towards a common ground. So we probably speak the same language over the internet. But with the increasing convergence of national cultures, individuals become more self-expression and autonomous in terms of decision-making and interaction with their environment. Just as like I say, I had an observation about that. Maybe in the long run, we no longer talk about the importance of national culture. Instead, we will discuss how the characteristics of a modern person, regardless his or her originality, affect the operation of the business in the international business context. Maybe individual will play the role. Okay. So anyway, we will see. The second question is that I think that's much more theoretical than the second question. Do you believe country or nation as a proper level of cross-cultural analysis? Yes or no?
I would say, like,
Why?
based on the experience of like Australia and New Zealand, like if you are come from like basically the same cultures,
Mm-hmm.
but like originals and their Maoris, they are very different cultures. So like if you say define the culture as Australian culture, it's very hard to define things like got white things without original. But New Zealand is the same, like so I think like if we do by nation overseas.
Yeah, I think that's the same case in Taiwan. People live in the north and in the south. We have different political situation, perspective and viewpoints, right? So yes.
I think that writing yourself to a nation is quite limiting.
Mm-hmm.
Just giving the example of like mainland China, like the name for China is Zhuguo,
Mm-hmm.
but actually that's a European construct of the 19th century because like China as a whole does not exist. It's like like a sphere of influence. Like the word literally means the Middle Earth.
Yes.
So taking that example of 200 years ago, you can also use it to nowadays, and this way show that comprising yourself to something that you arbitrarily made a nation will not give you the results that you are actually seeking.
Exactly, that's a very good observation as well, especially the China case. So I think we all believe that nation is not really the only level for cross-level analysis, right? But if you look at from the researcher's point of view, from the international business perspective, in terms of the research, national culture is probably the most logical level of analysis from which begin to understand the cultural environments and variation among a set of countries, right? But from the practical perspective, for international business managers, national culture is obviously not the only level. Okay? Probably would be so biased to conduct cross-cultural management purely based on examination of differences at the national level. Because we all know that multiple cultures can coexist in one country, and also they are cultures spread around different countries. They cannot probably have the same, right? For instance, American culture was so influenced by that because we watch Hollywood movies, right, a lot, and Netflix, right? So that's how we've been influenced by American culture. And what we've discussed so far, however, is pretty much related to the cross-cultural analysis at the national level. If you pay attention to that, we've been introduced different types of approaches to assess cultural differences at the national level purely. But you know that if you really dig into the concept, cross-cultural challenges can coexist at different levels. For instance, if you work in a multinational company, probably your company have different types of culture. They are quite different from your national culture. And not to mention that there are different professions culture coexist in one company. So let's start from the corporate culture or organizational culture. Corporate culture, organizational culture is how companies shape their ways of doing things that are different from other organizations. That's an easy concept. And it means that even two companies from the same country, they may possess very different organizational culture, right? For instance, you know that most Chinese companies are family-oriented business. And of course, their organizational culture will be very conservative, group-oriented, and perhaps a bit hierarchical in terms of decision-making. But if you pay attention to that nowadays, many unicorn startups or platform businesses are actually from China, okay, such as ByteDance, which is the mother company of TikTok. Okay? And they ranked the first in China as a unicorn company in terms of their revenue. And its organizational culture is very entrepreneurial, innovative, and decentralized. Okay? And just as you know that by 2021, China ranked the second as the home to over 300 unicorn companies around the world. And number one, of course, will be the United States. And this company, they are very innovative, delve into the patent developments and applications, even though most people will perceive China as a copycat to many international brands. Well, that's another issue, but you know that the volume of the patent application actually ranked the second in the world. That's actually from China. And that's the corporate culture. And professional culture is another simple idea, is that think about that people with different professions. They may speak different languages. Okay, so I mean not the literal language we are speaking right now, that's English, but the working language that's been used when they speak to other people with the same professional knowledge. For instance, if you are the marketer or salesperson in your company, you might find it quite difficult to communicate effectively with the engineers or people work in the back office, right? Because you actually using different terminologies and maybe you have different abbreviations to talk with your colleagues, okay? And you have no problem with when you talk with the people in the same profession, but you probably will need more explanation to people working outside your professions, okay? So that's the professional culture. So from the employee's perspective, it's really challenging to be socialized and fit in these overlapping cultures such as national, professional, and corporate cultures effectively in one place. And taking example of the French cosmetic multinational, I think everybody knows the rice company called L'Oreal, right? The distinction between L'Oreal's national and corporate culture is not always very clear because we know the French has much experience in the cosmetics and fashion industry. And L'Oreal is a global firm step with the manager run well. Okay, so their influences have shaped L'Oreal into a unique organizational distinctive within the French culture. It's very in line with the French culture. Their organizational culture is like this. But on the other hand, most multinational enterprises, they have distinctive organizational culture and with their national culture. Okay, so such cultural differences at organizational level are usually distinctive as their national culture. So probably two companies from the same country, they have very different organizational culture. Give you another example, the most company from UK, such as Standard Chartered Bank, they are usually very conservative in terms of their organizational culture. By contrast, another company, Convergent Group, I don't know if you know about this company, which is a rather young British music travel provider, has quite experimental and risk-taking culture in its organization. Okay? This is probably because of their influence from its chairman, Sir Richard Branson. Okay? So here I just want to highlight that as employees ourselves, we work in a multinational firm, it's always very challenging for you to adapt into different levels of culture when they are overlapping. And in the context of cross-cultural management, researchers have developed this 8 dimensions of culture map in work practices. Okay. They suggest the companies can use this tool to build a team. Okay. And personally, I think it's a very useful tool in multicultural teamwork, visualizing the cultures using this 8-dimensional map is helpful to make the collaboration as effective as possible. So it doesn't look at the national level right now, it's look at the individual culture. Okay? No matter where you come from, or which profession you have, or which organization you work with, everybody will have different perception towards different dimensions. For instance, they've got 8 dimensions here, ranging from communication, evaluating, towards scheduling. Okay? So I don't think we have enough time for you to do the test right now. So I already uploaded the test link onto your call. So I would suggest you, when you go home, you can spend some time to do a test, because I want to see how diverse of our class in terms of these cultural aspects. Okay? And you got the definition about 8 dimensions in the survey as well, also on the slides. Okay? So in the beginning of the next lecture, we're going to start with the survey and to talk about your individual cultural differences. Okay? And then we will try to use that skills to form a team. Okay? So any questions for now? No? Then I think we'll see class dismissed. I'll see you next week. Okay?